There's more to history than superficial victories. Your kisses unseen flow through my bloodstream. The blood is rushing, there must be something. Just do this one thing, reach out and touch me. Your love is awfully delicate, hug you for the smell of it. Trust our building element, don't hasten its development. I can't believe you're feeling me, love is what you're telling me. I fell for you unwillingly and now your love is killing me. Your hands are all too innocent, schemes to make it intimate. Dreams of you play into it, scenes these days are different. I can't believe you're feeling me, love is what you're telling me. I fell for you unwillingly and now your love is killing me. To beliefs, restore me as a chief. Record me underneath and hold me up to see. We're more than memories, much more than falling leaves. No longer begging please or praying on my knees. There's more to history than superficial victories. Your kisses unseen flow through my bloodstream. The blood is rushing, there must be something. Just do this one thing, reach out and touch me. Your love is awfully delicate, hug you for the smell of it. Trust our building element, don't hasten its development. I can't believe you're feeling me, love is what you're telling me. I fell for you unwillingly and now your love is killing me. Your hands are all too innocent, schemes to make it intimate. Dreams of you play into it, scenes these days are different. I can't believe you're feeling me, love is what you're telling me. I fell for you unwillingly and now your love is killing me. Beliefs, restore me as a chief. Record me underneath and hold me up to see. We're more than memories, much more than falling leaves. No longer begging please or praying on my knees. There's more to history than superficial victories. Your kisses unseen flow through my bloodstream. The blood is rushing, there must be something. Just do this one thing, reach out and touch me. Your love is awfully delicate, hug you for the smell of it. Trust our building element, don't hasten its development. I can't believe you're feeling me, love is what you're telling me. I fell for you unwillingly and now your love is killing me. Your hands are all too innocent, schemes to make it intimate. Dreams of you play into it, scenes these days are different. I can't believe you're feeling me, love is what you're telling me. I fell for you unwillingly and now your love is killing me. To beliefs, restore me as a chief. Record me underneath and hold me up to see. We're more than memories, much more than falling leaves. No longer begging please or praying on my knees. There's more to history than superficial victories. Your kisses unseen flow through my bloodstream. The blood is rushing, there must be something. Just do this one thing, reach out and touch me. Your love is awfully delicate, hug you for the smell of it. Trust our building element, don't hasten its development. I can't believe you're feeling me, love is what you're telling me. I fell for you unwillingly and now your love is killing me. Your hands are all too innocent, schemes to make it intimate. Dreams of you play into it, scenes these days are different. I can't believe you're feeling me, love is what you're telling me. I fell for you unwillingly and now your love is killing me. my bloodstream, the blood is rushing. There must be something, just do this one thing. Reach out and touch me. Your love is awfully delicate. Hug you for the smell of it. Trust our building element. Don't hasten its development. I can't believe you're feeling me. Love is what you're telling me. I feel for you unwillingly, and now your love is killing me. Your hands are all too innocent. Schemes to make it intimate. Dreams of you play into it. Seems these days are different. I can't believe you're feeling me. Love is what you're telling me. I feel for you unwillingly, and now your love is killing me. As a chief, record me underneath and hold me up to see we're more than memories, much more than falling leaves. No longer begging pleas or praying on my knees. There's more to history than superficial victories. Your kisses unseen flow through my bloodstream. The blood is rushing. There must be something. Just do this one thing. Reach out and touch me. Your love is awfully delicate. Hug you for the smell of it. Trust our building element. Don't hasten its development. I can't believe you're feeling me. Love is what you're telling me. I feel for you unwillingly, and now your love is killing me. Your hands are all too innocent. Schemes to make it intimate. Dreams of you play into it. Seems these days are different. I can't believe you're feeling me. Love is what you're telling me. I feel for you unwillingly, and now your love is killing me. As a chief, record me underneath and hold me up to see we're more than memories, much more than falling leaves. No longer begging pleas or praying on my knees. There's more to history than superficial victories. Your kisses unseen flow through my bloodstream. The blood is rushing. There must be something. Just do this one thing. Reach out and touch me. Your love is awfully delicate. Hug you for the smell of it. Trust our building element. Don't hasten its development. I can't believe you're feeling me. Love is what you're telling me. I feel for you unwillingly, and now your love is killing me. Your hands are all too innocent. Schemes to make it intimate. Dreams of you play into it. Seems these days are different. I can't believe you're feeling me. Love is what you're telling me. I feel for you unwillingly, and now your love is killing me. As a chief, record me underneath and hold me up to see we're more than memories, much more than falling leaves. No longer begging pleas or praying on my knees. There's more to history than superficial victories. Your kisses unseen flow through my bloodstream. The blood is rushing. There must be something. Just do this one thing. Reach out and touch me. Your love is awfully delicate. Hug you for the smell of it. Trust our building element. Don't hasten its development. I can't believe you're feeling me. Love is what you're telling me. I feel for you unwillingly, and now your love is killing me. Your hands are all too innocent. Schemes to make it intimate. Dreams of you play into it. Seems these days are different. I can't believe you're feeling me. Love is what you're telling me. I feel for you unwillingly, and now your love is killing me.
Hey,
What's up, my brother?
nada mucho. You made
How
it.
goes the legend?
The legends will be continue to be told. I like your setup.
Thank you. Here I am, all professional and stuff.
You're looking really good.
Yeah,
Hell yeah.
it has been a good couple of weeks for me, or a couple months, kind of getting this thing going. I mean, I got basically fired 3 times in 10 months. That was rough.
That's pretty freaking good though.
Pretty comprehensive.
Because you basically got like a lifetime of firing out, of being fired. Maybe a few lifetimes of being fired in a few month period. So that's freaking dynamite.
Get this stuff set up. Yeah, I was in a pretty mild, not mild, medium depression this last for a few months, surprisingly.
Yeah, I could see how that could happen.
And that's part of it.
Yeah, that's rough, man.
Feel it, don't fix it.
However, it seems like you came out on the other side, like you were kind of forced to do something creative.
Yes, I'm pretty excited about. Like this week will be the first time I made 2,000 in a week,
That's a nice week.
and I started
That's a real
at
nice
the
week.
wedding, at Ryan's wedding.
Wow.
Isn't that wild? Isn't that crazy?
That's a perfect place to start. Did you start with Ryan?
Oh, that's right. I tried to do business. I was going to do business coaching. That's like $400 an hour, which I could live on.
Yeah.
And then I was doing individuals, and then I got good reviews from a couple couples, and now it's just.
That's awesome.
I'm done actually. The one for the first time, because I still got to build out a lot of stuff, like my videos and that kind of stuff. But I can't take any. It's so cool. I'm smiling. Today's the first day. I can't take anybody else.
Wow. Can't take anybody else. You got too much going on right now. So you're like the construction industry was for several years.
Yep.
That's freaking awesome. So do you feel like you get a sense of freedom from that type of work?
Being full, or just so I love doing it. I think that's part of it. I really do. Oh, we're live. How about that? I didn't realize that. I thought we were just chatting. No,
sorry.
I love it. Several times
I played the holding video several times over.
I was thinking, I said 5 minutes. My 5 minutes are not 5 minutes because I don't care about anybody else. It's all about me.
Well, you did get stuck in Hawaii once.
That was okay.
So yeah, so
you got stuck there twice, dude, in our marriage.
Wow. So that's So you have all the right in the world to be on Hawaiian time.
Okay, I'm gonna take that. I actually talked to because I've always come in late, but it was really affecting my life. It has for a long time, but I've been productive enough that people put up with it. And I was talking to my counselor. I have a counselor coach I've had 10 years, and a lot of times he's a coach, sometimes he's not. So I said, hey, I want to look at this. I need some help going into it. And what really came was a breakthrough for me was I did not like having a coat on when I do counseling sessions. But I put
the coat you're wearing now?
Yeah. And so I put it on, and I think it has been very appreciated by my wealthy clients. And so as I've gained confidence in doing this, I'm doing 25 sessions a week, I've screwed things up, but just gotten better at it. And I feel competent when I'm talking to couples now. Anyways,
it makes me feel a specific way just kind of looking at you with the coat on right now.
Yeah. How do you feel?
I feel like I could trust you. I feel like I feel like you're a professional. It does like raise the bar in my own mind. And I look at myself in this video and I feel like I'm a wannabe Big Lebowski.
It'd be a good movie to watch.
I'm on my way.
Well, thanks for that affirmation about my thought patterns. Because but I've always been like, I'm not gonna fucking do what culture says to do. But I kind of got hit in the face this year where it's like, sometimes you got to do things you don't want to do.
Yeah, sometimes you gotta just start digging.
The world applies to me, the rules. But so real quick on why I was late all the time. What happened was I was late to pick up my daughter, and it's freezing outside at school, and I'm like, okay, this is enough. Like, I need to take responsibility and engage with this. But I noticed that there's times, this was weeks ago, where I was like really able to engage, and I got done. I was so happy. Like, I could tell I helped these people. They're happy, have hope. And I just felt shiny. Like I'm good at what I'm doing right now, and they appreciate me and that kind of stuff. And so I'm feeling that.
Oh yeah.
But then I try and hold off but you're still a piece of shit. Satan's little helper. But anyways, so we were talking like kind of going into the, my mind, seeing like what first thing, what was the benefit for me? And the benefit was I didn't have to be controlled. But then we went deeper, and he said, what do you lose if you show up on time? What's the loss? And my first thought was, I know this from a book, but I don't see how this connects. And it came out, the loss for me was the idea of when I show up late, I feel like I'm important. These people want me to be here. Vladimir Putin does that, but he makes people wait an hour. You know what I mean? But it's like, but it made me shiny. And so the thing I wrestled with for a week is, can I be shiny without that? And I'm not saying it's wrong to be. I'm stepping into my gold. Can I be okay just sitting here with this jacket on, caring for people for money? Like, is that shiny enough for me? And while it seems simple, it was very eye-opening to me in the concept of saying, okay, why am I doing something I don't want to do? Well, part of me wants to do it, and part of me is serving me, but the part that, what is the loss if I give this up? That was very helpful for me.
And do you think, have you went deeper into that and felt like if that was connected to anything further, like that feeling of importance, that feeling that had, just to play, I don't know, wannabe psychologist, right? Was there any one who made you wait that you felt like that you respected them more, or they were important, or anything like that?
Yes. And so, I've done a lot of work myself and gotten a lot of help, and then went and got certified for trauma and addiction and got all this like stuff. And so like when I'm counseling people, I'm like, everything's not about Freud saying the reason you're broken is because you want to have sex with your mom. But Freud did have a lot of good structures, and he did help. But so I often tell people, I'm kind of upfront, like, hey, I'm a trauma guy. I know how the brain processes it. I'd be honored if I can work with you with that. But honestly, it's only gonna be really helpful to go back to like three things.
Which
the rest of the things in your past they're just gonna be limps that you got to land the days. Like, we're not gonna be able to go back and explore every single thing that ever happened in your life, because it'll never be enough. And basically we have to walk. This is the human condition,
Yeah.
Now we can walk into glorious more and more freedom. But kind of in my experience, I had played in my childhood looked through every dang emotion I've ever done, and it's kind of been part of my training. And so, to your question, did that connect? Oh, it did very much. Like, I don't know if you remember in high school, sometimes I'd tell lies. I'd tell stories about the awesome things I'd do.
I would just tell the girls about the first day of school when you climbed the tree and the yard duty was you to get down. They liked that one a lot when we pretended like you couldn't hear.
Oh, you were telling your girls that.
Yeah. They appreciated that, but sorry to interrupt.
No. Yeah, so the thing about inferiority complexes or whatever is, especially guys will be like, no, but I got to take responsibility for this. I don't need to go back and deal with shit. I just got to do it. And so I've worked with addicts a lot, and I'm like, well, good luck. Like, you've been trying to do it for, and so you do have to take responsibility. And responsibility is going to get the resources that you need to find healing. What is it? Is it a spiritual leader? Is it a pastor? Is it a counselor? Whatever it is, if it's been going on for a long time, you're probably not going to work through it by reading a book. You need that relational connection. But so for my inferiority complex or imposter syndrome, it's like I always had to have some reason for people to think I'm, special. People can notice. But like you said a minute ago, this is how we become like our parents at the times we're like, no, I said I would never do this. I did everything I could to not. But the truth is, we learned life through observing. We're like a little sponge. That's how life is. And yeah, I mean, my mom would always overtalk me whenever I'd talk. She'd interrupt me and tell me how much better her story is. I would often be forgotten, like left. She'd leave the place, supposed to pick me up or whatever. And yeah, I felt like she had so much. So here's the sad part about it. When an 8-year-old's brain are black and white, parents get divorced. You see it all the time. They're like, oh, must be my fault. It's my fault. They don't have all these awarenesses. And so in those times with my mom, I was kind of in awe of her power. Like, she can do whatever she wants. I was also aware that she ruined every relationship she had, but in general, she was just powerful. She could do whatever she wanted. She told me stories all the time about things she did. And now I'm looking back, I'm like, well, I'm not sure those were true, but that was a way. Yeah. Yep.
There was a book that I've been reading, and I've kind of been going through it real slow, but it's called The Sutra of Hua Ning, I believe.
Oh, from Thailand? Yeah.
I don't know. Okay. Maybe China, but I'm not 100% sure. It kind of goes back to the more Indian Buddhist stuff, kind of.
Yeah.
And one thing that they were saying, or the teacher in the book was saying, and I'm not going to get it right, but talking about kind of recognizing one's mistakes and then vowing not to make the same mistakes, which I think is easier said than done for me. I mean, it's if I could have achieved that, I would, that would be amazing.
Never doing this again.
Yeah, and so, but it's kind of interesting to kind of think of that in the form of a prayer, right? Sure. Sometimes when we pray, we ask for forgiveness, and maybe for something specific or maybe something non-specific. And so I kind of started adding that into my prayer, and, please kind of guide me so that I can not make these same mistakes and, move further, towards the light, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and it's interesting, right? Because when you are doing what you're doing and learning about yourself and helping others, it feels like everything's just a reminder in a way. Everything, we all know kind of more or less what we need to do and what we want to do. And for some reason, there is this momentum that has a lot of power to it and a lot of force behind it. And you can't just skid to a halt like most people with an addiction. It's very difficult to just stop, doing whatever, it might be. I can speak firsthand. I had and still do, I'm sure. I've had an alcohol addiction for a long time, and it's very painful to stop. It's actually very, very, very painful. That's the hard part. Drinking's not the hard part, although you start seeing things deteriorate around you. That's hard to see, right? But what's really painful is when you stop. But the pain goes away because you're actually the pain is the addiction. It's the longing for, potentially a distraction, or for me, it feels like it's part of like celebrating and part of counseling and part of like all these different things that I feel is just everyday life. So it made it very easy to make it a part of everyday life. Yeah, but it just, what I was saying is the momentum sometimes is just very intense. And sometimes it's hard to kind of even get in and view ourselves and do what Jesus said, is kind of to pay attention, to be a witness, to watch. So I don't know. How do you feel about that sometimes? And what advice can you give anybody to kind of, slow down or weaken the momentum that's behind, the stuff that causes us so much heartache and suffering?
Yeah. There's one thing about the book you said, spiritual leaders who write books, like they probably have accomplished that, they did it. And so they're telling, now my guess is there a small percentage of the population that could do that, but the principles they're talking about are well lived, but addicts do not recover without connection, without other people. People don't, they do, but that's that small percentage that goes, I'm just going to stop doing this. So I was dealing with addiction for a long time, different things, and alcohol was a recent one. And I got to a place of hopelessness. And one thing, the biggest thing for me, the longest term thing was hiding pornography from my wife and using it all the time. And it was embarrassing to her, and she just didn't like it. And I told her so many times that I wasn't doing it. And every time I said no, I'm taking on this whole shame thing because I'm living not integrated with the world around me. And so connection is gone, and we feel like we're not worthy of connection. And so we protect other people by keeping ourselves away. Because it's like the last thing we can do. Like we're totally powerless now. But there's a guy named Gabriel Mate. He's kind of the godfather of kind of trauma right now. And, he says number one class in every addiction program is when you're dealing with addiction, you're actually never dealing with addiction. You're dealing with pain. Like everybody who's been everybody who's ever been in a season of addiction, and it really is. But the whole thing, like I'm going to be an addict forever, that is helpful to a lot of people, but it's not biologically true. That's not what happens to the brain. So I get rabbit trailed somewhere a lot. Okay, you're dealing with pain. The second thing, so most addicts don't stop by themselves, the vast majority. But the thing that there's a sense of worthlessness and powerlessness to addiction. And so doing it together with somebody or a group, that's why AA is not perfect, but it's super successful for a lot of people. It's not successful for everybody, but it's like you have these other people and they share their stuff and like the shame bubble gets popped. Now that's why this protecting other people really comes from, it's the last thing I can do. But the thing that really helps is a big part of addiction recovery, and just actually addiction recovery is like growth. It's just like humans need to go through this sense of integration and honesty, and we need to make a mistake and see that the world doesn't blow up. But one of the main keys is to become aware of what's up. Yeah, you can put it. So is to become aware of how we're affecting other people, because when we're in our addiction, we absolutely loathe ourselves for choosing this over the people who love us. We're not sitting there, oh, I can't wait to beat the shit out of myself today, but it is this underlying understanding, like we're made for connection, and here we are. And so it takes it to a place, but what really is the first step in anything, like you said, is awareness. Like, okay, so one thing is start with feeling your feelings. Guys are, that's another thing, but feeling our feelings, becoming aware of them is kind of the first step. Like, what's going on? And now we look at when we're in that state of emotion, why are we doing it? What's the benefit for us? Oh, it makes me feel powerful. Oh, when I'm feeling these emotions, I feel like I can do anything. Because here's something, anybody's watching, I would say addictions themselves are not bad. At some point in our lives, they saved our life. There was more going on than we could handle, and these things helped us through them. Now, it helped the 20-year-old, but we're 40 now. We have a prefrontal cortex that can think about stuff, and it's just not serving us anymore. And people who successfully a lot of people who get into recovery, they look at their addiction and basically they say, hey, thanks for fighting for me for so long. But I'm really going to release you to go play now, because good job, soldier.
This kind of just came to mind.
Yeah.
As a alternate theory of something, I guess. But do you think that maybe somehow our ego minds were overwhelmed by something, or maybe on the verge of being shattered, and it needed to ground itself somehow, some way, and that potentially leads to some destructive behaviors that actually in some weird way keep us intact?
Absolutely. Like, most guys who are not alcoholics by 35 don't become one. Same thing with pornography. Guys who don't end up watching excess pornography by the time they're 25, they don't end up getting addicted to it. Because these things, we look at them, these terrible things, and they are to people around us, but it's 1 a.m. Why do I keep forgetting what I'm going to say? But I was going somewhere with that. What was I saying? Can you remember the words?
I'm. You were talking about why people get addicted to things, and earlier in life, if they don't get addicted to
Oh,
them, they're
yeah.
usually not going to develop those addictions.
Yes. Good. So we'll say like, oh, well, it's alcohol. At least it's not meth. Well,
Yeah.
to the brain, it might as well be like the reason people don't get addicted to much things later in life, if they haven't had them before, is because they already have their well-developed go-to coping mechanisms. The brain's not going to grab this one and be like, oh, this is amazing. It's like it's already got its 6 other amazing things that it goes to when it's feeling sad, angry, or scared.
And so, what do you think? This is kind of an odd one, and I want to kind of ask about it because you have something that came to your brain.
Well, I was just thinking, to answer your question, though, I think you're totally right. That's exactly what happened in addiction, is that something happened. The clinical definition of trauma is too much. It was more than the brain was able to handle. And, the biology of trauma has been really helpful for me, but that's what happened. And we're basically carrying around these outdated coping mechanisms.
And so it is the hero's journey in a way. These people, including apparently both of us, we are all going through the hero's journey.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so I think there would be a lot of back and forth with certain people, with a lot of people, should I say, like especially a lot of men. What do you think is the most destructive part about having an addiction to pornography?
Yeah, thanks for that. So trauma is biological. When you go to sleep, and like we weren't designed for all this take in. Like I have this ring light sticking in my face, this to-do list I haven't caught up with in months, but it's still there. Like there's so much information. Like we were designed, and we were developed into a place where we needed to have sex, eat food, hang out with people, run from tigers, and avoid quicksand. I mean, the amount of inputs were 30x less. I mean, maybe more than that. So when we sleep, our brain does two things with memories. Our brain is absolutely desperate to make a coherent narrative. And if we can't understand something, we're going to be thinking about it because it's our brain trying to figure it out. Because once it's figured out, it's safe. Things we don't know, our brain automatically kind of, I'm not so sure about that. It's because we don't know it. Now, it helps us, our brain, when we sleep, is working overtime nowadays with a burden far, far, far heavier than it's designed for to help us remember and forget and make a coherent narrative. So at night, it dissolves. I mean, memories are biochemical, and so it's dissolving them. And then it's heightening the ones that if the dots connect, it makes sense. There's a coherent narrative for yesterday, and I'm in a good place. I'm okay. Now, the problem is, and this is what happens in counseling all the time, is the next day, I mean, it's kind of like, do not go to sleep on your anger, but the next day, two people will remember the conversation on Friday. They'll remember it differently, different facts. They'll start when it really started. Yeah, but it really started when you said this, And we'll all get defensive, we'll all hide things, but at base, neither of them are lying. Their brains have created different narratives to fit their bigger narrative of, self-construct. But what we do is we become, awesome mind readers being like, no, I know why you did that.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing too, because I think a certain part of us want to all agree on the story and agree on the reality. And what we're finding out is that reality is not consistent. It's not completely consistent because we are we are creating a portion of it. Each one of us are creating a portion of it. And obviously we're creating the largest portion for ourselves, to ourselves. And that's a freaking weird thought to imagine. And the story is the reality to people.
Yeah. Like, and that's where we get into problems when we break down. Like somebody says, like I had a guy the other day who he had a bad breakup. She invited him back. They had sex, and she called him 3 or 4 days later, and she said, "Hey, I don't know." And she said, "I'm feeling like it's my ex-husband. I'm having the same feeling when he did that. I just felt used, and I'm feeling scared." And so she's saying this to this guy. Now, what does this girl like really want from this guy? What do you think?
I would imagine that she wants to have a long-term relationship, that she maybe wants to reconcile maybe what happened in the past.
Okay. Yes, especially the second one. Now, in my opinion. But in that moment, why is she telling him this? How does she want him to respond?
She probably wants him to agree and, admit he made a mistake.
Okay.
Maybe I'm projecting there a little bit.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is a thing. Don't fix your wife, don't you validate it. Hey, babe, what you're feeling right now makes sense to me. And we can say like, I don't agree with any of it, but it makes sense to me. You're feeling that, because that's the point of contact. Now, this girl, and it happens a lot of times, the reason she's telling him this is because she's processing, and it's like we come home to our spouses or partners and we say, and they dump on us, and they don't want us to be like, oh, okay, let's start working through this. They just want to be heard and seen. And so she was most likely looking for a hug from this guy without words. It's like, hey, I'm sorry you're feeling this. It makes sense. I'm not going to do this. But what he did was very common with all of us. He said, what? You think I'm like your ex-husband? Why? No, you're wrong. Why are you thinking about this? Why are you trying to make me like that? Why are you so mean? And just lights her up. Because the world's all about him in that moment, man. And we miss the fact that people being seen is what needs to happen, and we didn't get that. I mean, that's why, one of the Bibles, God has all these names, and there's a gal named Hannah that gets kicked out of the tribe. Not her fault, because the men were stupid. But she looks up and says, you are the God who sees. And I think that's when we have prayer, meditation, we're trying to get aligned, but we're asking, part of what we're doing is asking for help. Like,
yeah,
like, you see me, and I don't know how it all works, but
So do you think that some of these challenges arise from maybe not feeling seen by God, or not having a strong relationship with God? Or
yeah, I think the Christian New Testament, I think that's the core, the key thing. I was talking to a guy right now. He grew up in a version of Christianity that it's all about obedience. But we always, we are never doing enough. And the threat gets higher and higher if we're offending our boss. And now we're in this place where we're offending something way bigger than we can even think about in our minds. And we want to go run and hide. Adam and Eve were in the garden, and that's in this story. And, they went and put clothes on and hid. And he says, why did you guys do that? And they said, because we were afraid. And that's when our brains are we don't measure up. We put all of our identity on what we perceive other people have about us.
Uh,
We don't know.
yeah. So that was my other kind of thought is I think we project a lot of our expectations and these things that we want from ourselves to ourselves onto other people. I want you to think I'm special. I don't need to think I'm special. I need you to think I'm special.
Yes.
You know, I don't need to be tender to myself. I need you to be tender to me.
I think you're right on. Yeah.
And that's, you know, sometimes I find that to be, well, it's definitely difficult sometimes. Because, like you said earlier, you know, sometimes you're giving this information in the back of our head. I'm going, well, what about, you know, me or whatever, right? We're judging ourselves. And yeah, but it seems like the right place to start. To me, it seems like it's going to be a lot easier for me to love others when I could find love for myself. It's going to be a lot easier for me to sympathize with others when I could sympathize with myself. And it's going to be a lot more genuine, I believe, when I could do these things on somewhat of a regular basis
Yeah.
within, and then we could, you know, more easily, you know, reflect this outwards. I had another question that you know what I wanted to ask you?
Yeah. No.
You don't, not yet, but you might. Well, first of all, I think that I thought his name was Gabe, but it might have been Gabe
No, yeah.
Mate.
It might be Gabriel. I don't know. But
Yeah, he's a really excellent teacher, and interestingly enough, and I think one reason why I really respect him as a teacher is he shares a lot about his own trials and tribulations and failures. And sometimes it's just him acting up with his wife or, you know, even bigger challenges. But he's not afraid to share his imperfections with, you know, the people that he's working with. And obviously, he writes books and does a bunch of YouTube and interviews all around the globe with cool people. And
Yep. I just bought an audiobook from him today about ADD. So really,
yeah, yeah, I haven't read any of his books, but I will at one point. But you know, uh, Jordan Peterson did a thing on the Book of Job,
yeah.
and my dad talks a lot about the Book of Job,
hmm
but I don't think I really understand what's happening in the book and what the ultimate lesson was for Job
Yeah.
or for us.
That's a good question.
And I know it's off subject, but
No. Yeah. So we start the story with ourselves, and you know, ancient literature, it's written for a reason. There's like locution, illocution, perlocution, like what's said, what did it mean, and what are you supposed to do about it? And now, one thing about the way, you know, the Christian scriptures, Jewish scriptures are written is that basically everything is about who Yahweh is, what he's like, and how he's different than the other gods of the day. And, but for like, that's how it's written. It's teaching each generation who Yahweh is and using thought forms from their worldview to explain it. But we turned it into something where a pastor will go like, hey, right here, Look at David. He cheated. He slept with a woman, got her pregnant, and got her husband killed. And then most of the time, the punchline is, and you shouldn't do that. It's like, really? You know? Like, and there's even things like the 10 Commandments. Like, we know them, a lot of them. And like, there is an actual literary structure of what law is to do. Law is helping us know what the deity looks like. Babylonian law, all law in the ancient Near East, it's communicating the deity. So all the laws are kind of like, look at a big building with a bunch of windows in it.
Like a codex type of thing.
Well, this is just like theoretical. If you look at like a big building and it has tons of windows on it, it's like a condo or something. Like, we can't see the deity, but each law is kind of like one of those windows. It helps us know what the deity's like. Like Ashurbanipal, a guy in Babylon, he wrote out all the laws of the nation on this big cylinder, and then he buried it.
Really?
It's not a matter of do this and receive this. That's not what it's for. It's for, law is given that, hey, this is what the deity's like. Act like him. Now, we go to the 10, we go back to the 10 Commandments. This is how it literally works. The whole point is teach us who Yahweh is. So it's like when they said, you shall not kill. Like, these people did not go like, holy shit, I never even thought about that. Don't sleep with another person's wife. It's like, can you imagine how much better our relationships will be? And we use it like that. But what it is like, why don't we steal? Because Yahweh gives. Why don't we kill? Because Yahweh's a life giver. And so we look at all these scriptures and stories, and we see them as things that what we should do is right. We want to make sure we're right, and we want to make sure we're wrong. And there's a reason for why something didn't happen or why we didn't do something. Now with Job, there is no reason. Like, this stuff just keeps happening, right? And it gets worse and worse. And so we read that in the modern world, we read that as, oh, sometimes God's just going to really shit on you, but he's doing his own purposes. And we really take that in. But there's mystery with the divine. And so, like, everything doesn't have to get explained down to the nth degree, but there still is a main point of the book. We're dealing with gods at war or in comparison with the gods of the day. And in the ancient world, there was no heaven. The king went to heaven. Everybody else went down to this scary place all over the world. And it wasn't like tortured by demons, but it was just kind of like cloudy limbo place. Like,
get back to workplace.
Yeah. And they called them bird people because their skin would come up. But anyways, like, for example, Hmong, there's a Hmong people that we hang out with a lot. Like, you go to a Hmong, traditional Hmong funeral, it is really sad. Like, grandma goes up there and they play the pipes the demons to come get and drag grandma home. And it's not, there's no hope that something better is coming. And the majority of the ancient world is like that. And so basically,
so they play the pipes, and that's to call on some energy or deity to bring grandmother back to some to the underworld or something like that.
They're taking her to the underworld. They're taking her to the place that's not good. And so this is kind of like a temporary bubble on top of a turtle shell where there's at least some pleasure and freedom. But there's no hope in ancient religions. There's just not. That's not the way it worked. But there's something called in the ancient world that's going on a lot in the Jewish scriptures, including Job. It's called the Great Symbiosis. In the way we view the world, I give you this, and then you will bless me because I gave you this. This is the way the world works. That's why when you're dealing with God,
like a good old-fashioned sales tactic.
Yes, you're right. I did this. You can put the cash in my back pocket now. But so this great symbiosis thing is how we have absorbed what the gods are like. And like you said, we've just projected totally on heaven. But the story of Job is this unfolding of Yahweh is the cosmic deity, but I don't work like that. I don't, if you give me money, burn it on the altar, like I'm not going to respond with, okay, I'll do what you want now. It's way over this. He says, the rain falls on the just and unjust at the same time. All of us are receiving the gift of air, the gift of water, the gift of relationships. You know, God's not picking and choosing or showing favoritism because one person obeyed more. And the story of Job is to kind of like, what's happening to Job is blowing the minds of ancient Near Eastern religions. Like, this is not the way it's supposed to work. Now, Job comes up to him too and really challenges him, challenges God, and he gets a little spanking, but it might have been a tender one. You know, Yahweh says, where were you when I put snow in the heavens? You know? And he's revealing himself as a free agent who is consistently giving to the world. And they're like, well, what about Job? Now, there's a whole lot of stuff that happens in the book that aren't Job's sufferings. And if we say, okay, well, let's figure out what happened to Job before we talk about anything else. It's kind of like saying, like, well, let's go have someone tell us not to sleep with each other's wives because it's all about us. Job's story does set up this grander competition in destroying the ancient world's gods, flip them upside down. Like, the ancient world's not safe. You know, the story of Abraham and Isaac, just real quick. God says, Abraham, hey, come up. You know, Yahweh takes him out of his land, gives him all these cool blessings. He does really stupid stuff. Like, they go to Egypt and he tells Pharaoh, oh, this isn't my wife, this is my sister. So Pharaoh takes her into his harem. Now, when they leave, it says that, and all of Egypt gave him their treasures, basically. And it's like, that's not how it's supposed to work. Like, why did you get rewarded by that again? You know? But when you get to the story of Isaac, and now in every archaeological synagogue we found, it's called the Akedah, the blood place. The story of Abraham and Isaac is center stage on the wall. And the story is, this is how far Abraham was willing to go. And you need to be that far, willing to go that far too. Because God tells him to go kill his son up on the mountain. Abraham is feeling lots of emotions when he's taking his son up the mountain to sacrifice. And the writers, they fill it with all these verbs. So it's like kind of like one step at a time. And now Abraham, so every ancient culture, once there's like famines that goes on for years, eventually it'll move to human sacrifice because it's like nothing else is working. And so you end up moving to this final, maybe this will get heaven's attention. And so Abraham's feeling sad. He's feeling disappointed. He's feeling angry. He's feeling all these emotions. But while he's going up the mountain, he is not feeling surprise. Because this is what gods do. Gods demand everything. Now, because the story here is not about how faithful Abraham was. The story here is how Yahweh is different than the other gods of the day. I mean, we've kind of gone a long way down this, but just to finish, you know, Yahweh had blessed him even when he's an idiot. And so he's thinking, man, this God's really different than the other ones. Because remember, there's no heaven. Heaven's not safe. Like, we are putting sacrifices on there. Hopefully someone up there will turn the storms off. You know, what else can I give you to help me have a baby? You know? So that's the way everything works. But then on top, you know, he's got this knife and he's ready to go down. You know, really sad that the God he thought was different isn't. And he kind of gets himself and the reader to the end of their shit and be like, what is going on? And then an angel says, stop. And they look over and there's a ram there for the sacrifice. But the point is still Yahweh. At that moment, all of ancient Near Eastern theology, understanding of heavens and earth, was flipped totally over. Yahweh got his attention and communicated to Abraham what he was like. And Abraham tells us the main, like we know the main meaning of the story, because after the story it says, and that is why this place is called Jehovah Jireh. God gives, or God provides. Like the whole point of the story is telling future generations why that hill's called God provides. But for the first time in the ancient world, a man looked up to heaven and realized it was safe. It was good. Yahweh's not calling me to kill my kids. Like, he is going to provide the ram. Like, I can trust him in a way that I've never trusted anybody else. And
So,
go ahead. Yeah, I'm done. But
so would you say that at least partially a point of that story would be to teach Abraham that God was teaching Abraham and many others, I guess, simultaneously, that God will provide, that like you said, there were different gods at the time, different
it's this great symbiosis. This, I give you, you bless me.
I give, you bless me. And that no longer held water, more or less, with Yahweh.
Yes.
It was something different that was required.
Yeah. I mean, you get that from Egypt had circumcision before the Jews did, and they kind of took it and appropriated it and made it a new meaning. But eventually, I mean, there's 2 times in the Old Testament, Jewish Testament, where God says, look, I don't want your sacrifices. It does not bring me joy for you to be killing animals up there. Like, that's not the way I work. And of course, the people there are like, what? And he's saying, no, that was supposed to teach you about me. Like, that doesn't do anything. I don't forgive you because you killed that animal. I forgive you because I'm me. Okay, go ahead.
And it kind of sounds like that leads or echoes, the later teachings of Jesus, where he showed people that there were things that were much more important than the law.
Yeah.
For instance, thou who has not sinned, cast the first stone. Right? They were, by law, they would have done the right thing to stone this lady, right?
Yeah. Yeah. By
But
law.
Jesus is saying there's a lot more to it than that. That's, there's more to this dignity. And I guess a lot of people, talk about Christ consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about that, by the way? Do you feel like obtaining, like, or finding Christ within, or I guess a purity within, is a reflection of anything that one might learn in the Bible? Or do you think that's going off on a tangent?
No, I think that's, we develop the mind of Christ. Like, that's what, like, you have this Holy Spirit in Genesis, right? Genesis looks like all kinds of other religions, like creative stories, because that way it made sense to people around a fire. But then you have this spirit there, which is totally not anywhere else. And as you move through scriptures, like, it's even they're trying to figure it out, but like, God's spirit is like in us, working symbiotically. That's like a unique thing to Christianity, that somehow we're co-creators. But I think it comes back to like Adam and Eve were made in the, like, I don't know if Adam and Eve were real people or not, but I know what the story is saying. You can interpret
Yeah.
it. Now it says they were made in the image of God, and then there's a Hebrew bait. What are they supposed to be doing? Ruling the world as God. Like, the whole story is like, look at what God's doing and then go do that. What would Jesus do? And I think that that's the unique thing. It's like our spirits get aligned with his, and that's what he wants. Like, that's exactly what he said, when I don't want your sacrifices, I want your hearts. And because he does want us to be life givers, all humans. Use whatever gifts or treasures we have to expand the garden around us. But I do think the Christ consciousness is something, and it's not just for Christians, because we all have that. I believe we're all made in the image of deity or the divine. Is it the exact same? No, but there's definitely a power, a grace, a actual connection that humanity has with the deity, and like, and what that spirit wants to do is set the blind free, heal the blind, heal the lepers, set the people in prison free. Like, that's what our hearts want to do and our deepest want. But a lot of
Yeah.
stuff just gets in the way. Go ahead.
Just kind of going back to people trying to work through their personal challenges and sometimes their community challenges, right? Like doing couples counseling and stuff like that. And to me, it seemed really hard. Like, do I want my wife to know that I'm watching pornography and masturbating? I kind of don't want her to know that,
Yeah.
It's kind of embarrassing, I guess, and it's also I could also understand that it could be hurtful towards her, where, my own desires, right, could make her feel maybe that, I need more than her, or, something like that, right?
Yeah.
And so what do you, when would you recommend that somebody disclose, something that they find, embarrassing, or something that they don't want to share? How do you go about that?
Yeah. That's a good question. One thing for later is that the best orgasm we'll ever have with somebody else gives us about 550 parts per million of dopamine. Because like I said, we live in a world now where it's crazy. When we masturbate to moving pornography, we can get up to 1,500. It's
Wait,
crack.
what was the other number? So
550, maybe 600 if you're upside down and backwards, but you're gonna get 500 basically. And then you get the magic emotion, the baby drinking milk from mommy. Is once you've had the dopamine rush, you lay there and you're kind of safe, and you get the oxytocin bonding thing. But we don't get that with Tinder. We don't get it because the relationship doesn't happen. But you get the orgasm. But like I said, porn can be 3 times as much. But so there's 2 things I talk about immediately with couples. One is mask. Like, we have to be on the same page. We don't have to. We can have really different opinions, but mask, like money, alcohol, sex, kids. Like, I don't care who's right, but we got to be on the same page with those things. Understand what the other person's out, and we make some agreements. But because there can be no expectations without an agreement, we've got to be on the same page. I have one couple right now, like he's always liked pornography. All right, I'm not going to judge. Has it ever caused major problems for him? Maybe, but he's going to do it. And she's terrified. Like, what's wrong with me? Like, I know he's doing it. I found the lube in his car, you know, and it's like, well, I'm hoping that's what's going on. But anyways, yeah, and these guys are wealthy professionals, you know, but am I not good enough? Is that why? Like, it's really interesting couple. They have sex 6 times a week. She's feeling like it's not enough. And she's frustrated that he lasts too long. And I'm like, what? Anyways, back to the good stuff. We got to get on the same page because she doesn't know what's going on. So her mind is going to help her and create all kinds of possibilities coming from her own traumas. And she's going to be afraid. And so one thing in relationships, and like what you're talking about, is there's a difference between secret and private. Secrets are held and they're really dangerous because secrets, like, we don't want the other person to know. And so we keep it from them, and then our relationship just, goes away. Secret's not healthy. You gotta be on the same page. And so we talked about it. This guy, I guarantee it, this guy's 50 years old. It's the first time he ever talked to anybody about his masturbation habits. And so, but what happens was they talked about it and they came into a place of agreement where she asked, and he didn't have to do this, but the whole point in communication is invitation, if he would just let her know when she did it. And so, and then she just then he's like, well, are you going to let me know when you do it? So now they send they have their little emojis, but they're not it's not like he has to come back and saying, hey babe, my new office chair goes back 35 degrees. And so if I turn to my left, it doesn't need to happen. But now that they're on the same page and that there's awareness, her threat level of him having further sexual experiences outside of their marriage it's way down. She doesn't need to know super details. And so we got to get on agreements, and secrets are always bad. Secrets are, addicts are liars. And so they never work out well.
And how do you think, do you think that this gentleman was liberated to a certain degree to be able to be open with something that apparently was, very private at that point?
He was really surprised when she brought that up during the first meeting. I was like, okay, go ahead.
Got a little taken aback.
Yeah. Most guys don't want to come to therapy. Now they're like, fuck this, man. Okay. Back to your question.
Well, I don't know. I think you might have nailed it. Well, maybe I could think of a different question.
Well, part of what he's 52 years old. He runs very successful company, and he locks the door every day, and not every day, but once a week. But he does. He locks his door and he goes in there and masturbates, and part of him feels like I didn't earn this. There's something called earned dopamine and cheap dopamine, and there is a sense of is this what I am? And they don't have a faith background, but he's just feeling like I'm kind of like a slave to this, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the reasons the goal of relationship, the goal of having a partner is we get to a place where we're allies in each other's growth and freedom. Having that out there for them and having the shame taken away, the dominoes have fallen really quick. It's like, oh, I want to talk about something, because now there's this safety that we can talk about this stuff. And these guys are actually moving faster than anybody else I've worked with, but they're 50. But how are we we don't want to be in bondage to anything. We're talking about pornography here, but for example, with pornography, if they're sharing, if he starts sharing every day, that's a great opportunity for them to come and talk and say, hey, what's going on? How can I support you? Are we not having enough sex? Are you feeling really, yeah, tell me about the pressures that are going on. And so we build those boundaries where a flag does go up for our partners, where they can come in and help.
You reminded me of a. I thought you reminded me of a mate conversation, but I realized it was a Joe Dispenza conversation.
Okay.
And the gentleman is telling Joe Dispenza, when I go and I'm, on the road, there's a few things I don't like about myself. One of them is I feel like I'm a messy traveler. And the other thing is, at night, at midnight, I start, eating a bunch of sweets. And then I immediately feel guilty. And Joe Dispenza told the guy, it might not be the sweets that you're addicted to. You might be addicted to the guilt.
That's a research-based thing. It's true. And the reason for it's dark and sick and almost unbelievable.
Well, that's the shadow, right?
Yeah.
The shadow is not so sexy sometimes. If it was so sexy, we'd be flaunting it.
Yeah. And with our self-shame, like we forget that we don't hold a shadow or a gold in our hand. Like they're both there. But this one's trippy, dude. And it's not going to happen. It's not all the time. But why do we get addicted to shame and guilt, kicking our own ass? We are designed for this really intimate authority figure or figures to be kind of watching over us so we don't have to pay attention to things. And everything inside of our body, the brain is creating chemicals to help us connect with them. It's desperate. Like, I'm going to die. That's what shame is. We used to be in a tribe somewhere. We break the rules. We're going to get kicked out and we're going to get eaten by a tiger. So fucking obey the rules. Like, the brain is getting attention. Now, unfortunately, when there's times where there's experiences where, our mom only really ever talked to us when she was telling us we did something wrong. Or, my dad only ever paid attention to me when he was, yelling or something. We would feel that there's a lot of shame that takes in. Remember, the kid is 8 years old. Must be my fault. And that connection is solid. And like when we have our brain connections, we get this stuff called myelin, this juice over it, like that kind of seals it and makes it really strong and hard to change. But that desire for connection ends up being met by shame. They get connected. And so how do we get the deepest connection again? Like, we feel that shame because it's connected to that intimacy, whatever it was that we had.
It's almost like a nostalgia.
Yeah. And I just think, like, if there's a devil, that's it. It's like, holy crap, we are like wanting to be there with mom again. Okay, how was it with mom? It doesn't really matter how it was. At least I was with mom. But that nostalgia thing is there because it's directly related to how that connection was maintained.
Wow. Yeah, that's an intense thought right there.
It was for me. I mean, I thought, yeah, someone first said it to me, I was like, I disagree because you're crazy. Like, what the But isn't that tragic? All of us at some degree, but some people totally like, that gives me empathy for the human race, looking at somebody else being like, oh man, we are all carrying our painful crazy.
Yeah, it is. It's I think it's really easy for most of us to kind of just not assume anything about somebody else and just look at you know, the wrong part, right? And just as easy look at the part that seems right as well. And we go, okay, this, but not really even using our imagination whatsoever to imagine that, wow, this person could have been through some things that I can't even imagine. And you know, who am I to judge them?
Yeah.
Who am I to think that I am, above anybody? And but why do we want to judge? Why is it so easy? Why is that the default for us? That's the question that I'm asking myself all the time. Why is it so easy to be the judge, to be the complainer, to be the victim?
Mhm.
Why are we not choosing to be the hero in our stories
Mhm.
and play out the hero?
That's a good question. There's a biological answer to it, and it's trauma. How it, like, trauma is a physical part of the brain. That's why Gabriel Mate really reached into this and made it, like, took it out of like a science textbook about what trauma is, and it was revolutionary. Like trauma, remember, at night your brain cleans all these memories out. The other thing it does is it freezes that memory. And so it's like you get bit by a black dog as a kid, that memory gets frozen because your brain says, I am not going to let you forget this. So it pours a bunch of juice all around it so that, like, future pain, our brain's trying to protect us from future pain, right? Now, this is a piece of brain matter that is frozen, can't be used for anything else. That's why people with like extreme PTSD or long-term trauma, like, interacting with their brain is not really happening at the level it was before. But so, I mean, there's a lot of stuff here, but that thing gets stuck in there and they build up, they compound, and it's 1:30 in the morning and I went on a rabbit trail. I don't even know where I am, but trauma in the brain. Why do we judge? Yeah. And so this is just one aspect of it, is that
12:06 here.
2:06 here. I don't know. I'd love to do this again, but I am totally losing my trains of thought. But what you said there is also the most tragic thing for the humans, because how do you feel when you look at someone who feels like, imagine you're looking at a guy over there and you're like, you see him and you understand that, oh man, that dude is totally judging other people so that he can feel good about himself.
Yeah.
Now,
I think the knee-jerk reaction is to kind of want to shame that person and do the exact same thing, right? Like continue that cycle.
but if that dude had one leg, what would you do? What would you feel for him? Compassion, right? Like, oh man, I feel bad for that guy. He doesn't want to be sitting there spending his day comparing himself to everybody else. Like, that's not what he wants to be doing. And have compassion as a fellow human. They're like, oh man. Yeah.
So that visual effect would give us open our minds more. And then so we're not really seeing the wounds that are not superficial. We could take account of the superficial wounds that other people have and give them and be more understanding and be more compassionate. But it's much harder for us to do so when the wounds are not obvious or not superficial.
Yeah.
And of course, that's probably the way we react to, the people closest to us in our lives too, where we don't quite understand maybe why they are having a rough day or frustrated or whatever it might be, right? Where we feel like they should not be acting like that. They should be happy. We should be
Yeah.
excited together. And there and there's wounds there, and there's wounds in here as well. And they're not obvious sometimes. And those are the ones that seem to require a greater amount of compassion from our part
Mhm.
and much more control over our own behavior, which is a fun challenge. And that it's so much fun. You have to be prepared to kind of be a loser sometimes in that fight.
Yeah.
And I'm talking to myself there.
Well, you said something earlier and you said something now that are really a great connection, that empathy and compassion is we're seeing the person, we're not telling them, hey, you should do this, or hey, you shouldn't do that anymore. I mean, that's not a benefit to them. Now, there's, like you said right now, there's also one very important person that we need to develop compassion for. And it's, inside this fancy jacket. Like, if I spend all my time kicking the shit out about myself, like, I'm not going to have energy to give to the world and bless it. But what I need to do is be seen. And really, like, preaching to ourselves is what needs to happen. Problem
Yeah.
is, yeah. And the problem is we preach, don't kill, don't, we preach, don't do this, and I do. I call it Satan's little helper, man. Shame, standing up on a chair over us. But preaching to ourselves is preaching life to them, telling them what is really true about them, having compassion on them, like us, helping us, our little boy inside, or however you want to frame it, as you're not especially broken. You're not like you're not a work project. It feels like it when you're in it, but from my 44-year-old brain, this is the journey of humans, and, I'm here with you. And self-compassion, that changes things. And we always think that compassion means let them do whatever it wants. It's like, no rational thinker would say that. But we need that compassion.
Yeah, there was and I'll kind of make this my last comment, but
Mhm.
in that same book that I mentioned earlier, they talked about not allowing yourself to be I can't think of the right word, but kind of like shocked or disturbed, or I almost like want to say mentally molested. Um, yeah, I guess it's getting late, but
No, we got time.
basically, not allowing your brain to be disturbed by things, whether good or not so good. You know, And I think that's kind of a little bit of what you're alluding to when we're working, with other people and having compassion is it's not, we're not condemning or condoning really much. You might tell somebody that you love that, hey, I would rather not that you watch you kill yourself in this particular fashion.
Mhm.
But I could do so without being mentally disturbed. Or, you could be fascinated with somebody's talents, but I could do so without imagining that myself with those same talents. And I know that doesn't make much sense because I can't find the right word. I'll be looking at my book later.
Well, having those thoughts and those emotions, like we walled off a lot of them because they weren't allowed. One of the biggest fallacies that we say all the time is, you made me so mad.
You made me.
Yeah. Do you know what you made me feel? And it's like, we're some serious, sure as shit victims down to the core. Like,
Yeah.
I made a choice, like it hit me and I had an experience, but then I had to choose what to do with that experience. Like,
I'm at this level, and I'm sorry, I just gotta shoot this out there.
Yeah.
Where, I'm pretty low on the spiritual totem pole, but maybe this is the bottom, this is the top, right?
Yeah.
I'm at this point where I could like catch myself being an idiot in mid-stroke and choose to continue being the idiot.
Oh yeah.
Doing exactly what you just said and realizing I'm doing it as I do it, but like that momentum was too strong to just step away from it when I should have. It's funny. It's funny, and it's like it's embarrassing in a way where I'm like not really embarrassed. Like I'll share it with you and even my wife, or like who was forcing me to do what I've always done, right? Be insensitive and all that stuff. Hey, will you maybe take us out with a short prayer?
Yeah. Father, I thank you for this time that we get to talk about things that are meaningful. Yeah, to expend our time and that in a way that is helpful to us, helpful to each other, hopefully helpful to others. God, I pray that you would help us integrate ourselves, help us to see how we were made, who we were made to be. Help us take our eyes from the shadow, even though it's there, and recognize that our gold is there right with it. Yeah, and I pray this in your name. Amen.
Amen.
That's
Thank
fun.
you, my brother. That was very fun. And let's do it again, but maybe not so late for you. This is not too shabby for me, but
dude, I got to get up in 4.5 hours. I can do this. I think I'll go watch a show first.
Yeah, like a calming show. Watch like a show about the ER.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciated your time, brother, and I'm super glad that that we got to chat and just talk about, like you said, something that means something to us both. And it feels like I got a little bit of chicken soup for the soul.
Yeah, I admire the journey you're on. I honor you, and I say keep going. Help me go too. Help me keep going.
Well, it's a tough one. That comment could open up a whole new where we don't have time to do. But yeah, it's one of those things where sometimes you just want to throw in the towel, and I choose not to. So that's where I'm at.
Let me leave you with one of the 10 kind of sayings that is in my life still. A guy named Larry Crabb, he was also first starting to, he took the brain science too and started integrating it within, what we're really getting from connection and how connection is really what's healing us. Our brains too. Our brains are safe when we're connected. Anyways, no rabbit trails. So he worked on himself for years. He became kind of like the godfather of connection psychology. Really humble guy. So he tells a story about at Christmas, they have like a nice house, and he's sitting there, and the grandkids are all around. And well, his daughter-in-law or whatever did something, and he was sitting there really pissed off about it. It was small, but he's freaking pissed, or maybe it wasn't small, whatever it is. It's like more, and so he, has compassion on himself, realizing that, all right, Larry, it's okay, you got triggered. That's all right. And then he looks at his kids, and kind of the observation principle of these kids learned by, watching. And he saw where his kids had each had issues with anger, and bitterness and stuff. But the things that he had exhibited in, their early childhood. But they had pretty happy lives. They had stable jobs. They were pretty good with their kids. Their marriages were okay. And so he started feeling like, hey, I did something good. I stopped the slide because his family was rough. And I was able to pass on something better to my kids that's worked. And then he started crying because he looked at his grandkids and realized, wow, they have almost none of that.
Wow, that's so beautiful.
That's why I want to do work, man.
That's a beautiful, beautiful purpose. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
And love you, my brother.
Love you too. We'll talk to you later.
Yeah. Have a beautiful 3.5 hours of sleep.
I will. Give me a call in a couple hours. Let me check in on me.
I'm not gonna.
All right. Dude.
Yeah, I'll let you know right when I wake up.
Say hi to Vanessa and the kids to me.
All right, you do the same. Well, thanks for hanging out with us. Definitely a special day when I could have a beautiful guest that knows so much about the Bible and himself. And it's really fascinating to see people who can be honest about things that a lot of us find embarrassing and, hold with shame, and kind of just opens the door for more people to become honest. And I'm very excited to be able to share this, and thank you.